only 16 number now.
Yeah, we have
I'll
16.
start.
People will join in as they come. I think we should start.
Okay, allow me to share my screen like PowerPoint presentation.
Yes, I will
Allow
do
me.
that. I will do that right now.
Yeah.
Screen share. Hang on one moment. Okay, you can share your screen.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'm going to ask everyone else to mute while he starts the training.
Yes. Just a minute.
Sure.
Let me set up my. Okay. I give all honor, all glory, and all thanks to. Really, it's a great privilege. I give all honor, all glory, and all thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for this wonderful time, for this beautiful evening for USA, and beautiful morning for Asian world. I'm really privileged that God has given me this opportunity to come and share some of our view, which is already, I think, been shared by our brother. Uh, I think, yes, Damon has already shared about the disaster management. I think he must have done that thing. But anyhow, with our experience, vast experience in this field, I would like to just put some of the inputs, some of the points. Maybe it is already covered earlier by my brother, beloved brother Damian Ramesar, but still, I would like to, spend some time over these things. As we all know that we Christian leaders are not only the leader on Sunday or in our church, or not only in the leader among our own Christian community, but we leaders are responsible for our whole of our community inside the church also, that is on Sunday and Saturday, but from Monday to Friday, we are responsible for all the secular people, all the geographical areas where we all are living in. So by the grace of our God, we have given the teaching and training to all our pastors, evangelists, and the lay leaders, and even the church believers also, and train them to become skilled leaders and to come forward whenever there is a disaster in our area, whichever area they belongs to. So our people nowadays, like from past few years, like we have learned a lot of things by many disasters which was there in India, especially the tsunami disaster, where I was made the chairman by the Prime Minister of India for handling the whole of tsunami disaster, and by the grace of God that we could do it in a very, very significant and a very befitting manner. And I myself, by the grace of God, the government of India had given me 10,000 victim families, which we have adopted for more than 3 years. We have provided them everything. All relief was given to them. And then at the end of 3 years, we also have donated 10,000 earthquake resistant houses for them. And after that, many people of the many countries, they know me as one of the experts of this disaster management. Anyhow, as we all are responsible leaders for our society, we have to give back to our society when our nation, when our country is in need. What country is giving to us, that is not a big matter, but what we, our church leader, what our congregation, what we as a bona fide citizen of that particular country is giving back to the country in the form of this all social work, in the form of the humanitarian work, which we call as a holistic ministry. So through this holistic ministry, what we are giving back to the society, what we are giving back to the nation, that is very important. So today we'll focus on this disaster management. My brother will, go into the depth of these things. From our experience, I'll be just teaching certain points. As we know, that the disasters can be defined in two major things, that is natural disaster, number one, and number two is the man-made disaster. Many people are suffering because of the man-made disaster more than the natural disaster. The natural disasters are like earthquake, tsunami, floods, landslides, volcanic eruptions, droughts, locusts, etc. All other things and all things are also there in the list of the natural disaster. And in the man-made disaster, like chemical weapon, biological weapon, nuclear weapon, poisonous gas leakage from the factories, many factories are manufacturing, several things. Of course, the things which they are manufacturing are for the society, for the benefit of the society, but ultimately they release certain poisonous gas which in the open atmosphere without treating, without proper treatment, even some liquid which they are releasing from the factories without treatment, and that liquid, that waste water goes to the soil, underwater, underground water, and it is totally poisoning the under this groundwater level. This is under the groundwater, the table, the water table. It is totally, with polluting the underground water and also the air through the gas leakage and all. And also very important is that without the knowledge of the government, of course, with the corruptions and all, many people they do the encroachment of the land near the rivers, near the sea, which is not supposed to be given for the habitation. That is not at all permissible for habitation, because land near the riverside, near the sea's coastal belt and all those things, that is the coastal zone areas, that land should not be used for, like for the permanent constructions, building constructions that will not only that a huge building like of 10 storied, 15 storied and all those things, kind of things, the people they do that deliberately, they do that, and they are inviting problem. And when the tsunami is there, when some kind of the river flood is there, heavy rain is there, and then people are suffering, and many people, the death is happening. So we'll understand all those things. Of course, you all must be knowing that thing. But anyhow, we will just, our main aim is to reduce, the number of death from all such kinds of things, that affects also. And we can do these things by managing. That is some few points, like prevention is better than cure, we all know that. So prevention of all this kind of disaster, whether earthquake, whether the landslide, or whether flood, or whether such kind of volcanic things, locust, and all those things, certain preparedness has to be there, because we know all those things that we already know in the Google map, even in the geographical map, we know that certain areas are classified as earthquake zone. So there the earthquake will be more. Some places the earthquakes are not there, but in some zones the earthquake is there. Already the engineers, the scientists, they are well aware that that particular area is a earthquake zone. So if building is required to be made there, important buildings are required to be made there, so we have to do certain preventions, like some reinforcement structure in the structural designing of the building. We have to add additional reinforcement right from the foundation level, and then when the foundation level, the extra reinforcement has to be given. When it comes to the plinth beam level, extra reinforcement has to be given. Again, when in the column and the lintel, at the lintel level, extra reinforcement has to be given. And again, in the slab level, all extra reinforcement. In the beam level, all extra reinforcement has to be given, so that even if earthquake comes, like the building will be able to manage that shock. That shock, building will be able to manage that thing. So that is our thing, that we have to do the prevention. Then number two is the preparedness, then the response, mitigation, and recovery. These are certain steps, for us to understand and to train our people, our congregation, our own people with whom we are working, our community with whom we are working. We have to teach all those things in advance, and also we have to take the government also in our confidence, because when any such kind of disaster is there, the government authorities are in the forefront, and then they are also making mistakes. The government authorities are also making mistakes by not involving the local community of that area, because the local community of that area knows the whole geography, they knows everything. So it is always better that even before the disaster, there should be a proper coordination, synergy should be there between the local community, the local NGOs. Those are very effective in such kind of work. So that is, sometimes missing. There is a gap between the government authorities, the government agencies, and the local agencies, the local community. And it is seen that during all such disaster, most of the government authorities, government agencies are failure in doing, the 100%, the response, the emergency response, but the local community and the NGOs are more effectively, they are working for such kind of disaster management in when there's a disaster. So we have to, train our own people and make them as a skilled, give them the skilled leadership, like a paramilitary force. Like, they have to be ready for any such kind of disaster, is there whether man-made disaster or whether natural disaster, they have to be ready to go pack up their small bag and go to like a military, like a soldier. You have to go in the forefront. Even the Bible is teaching us in the book of, Second Timothy, second chapter, that we should be like soldiers. God is just is making us like soldiers of Christ, both in both the aspects. Jesus is making us, God is making us a soldier of Christ. I was also very much impressed when God gave me a chance to go to a place, called Apollonia, which is mentioned in the Bible, where the first Bible college was established by Apostle Paul. It is there somewhere. It is called somewhere very near to Macedonia, and you can read about Macedonia, the country Macedonia, which comes very often in the ministry of Paul's journey. He was often going to Macedonia, and there is a place called Apollonica, or something like that. That first Bible college, God has given the grace to go there. And I could see that, Apostle Paul was teaching and training like engineers. He was giving all kind of training to the pastors, all kind of trainings, like, how to do, like, the engineering management, like, irrigation management, irrigation engineering. He was giving even like, like a civil engineering, like he was giving every training like a civil engineering to the pastors, and mosquito controlling, mosquito breeding controlling, and that water flow from out of gravity, how it should go reach to all the houses of that down area. All those kind of teaching I really admire, because this all I thought that I'm only teaching. But then when I went to that area, I've studied the whole thing. I was there for 3 days, and we did a small conference also over there, and I was very much admired. So that was the plan of Apostle Paul. We read in the Bible, and he did that thing. So same way now in the last century, in the end days, we have to do the same way. Like, we have to make our congregation not only as a believer coming on Sunday, giving the tithes and going back, only receiving the blessing. No, they are also responsible for making our nation strong, building for the sustainable development. And when the disaster is there, they have to be in the front foot in a team way, in a team manner, not individual, because this management is not one man show, it is a team. The whole team has to do this thing, then only it is possible. See, emergency, is very, very important. Emergency preparedness and emergency response. We should have, the full-fledged, our equipment, our, everything we should have. so that we should reach to the spot in as much as early as possible to the spot with our team. We did that thing. I'm experienced in that. We have done that thing. Our island where I'm staying, that island, all scattered islands are there between Thailand, in between Thailand, Malaysia, all those islands where this tsunami disaster was there. So all scattered, small islands were there. By the grace of God, I was knowing the geography of all the island, and earlier I did the ministry over there, starting the churches in so many islands, more than 55 islands, small islands. We did that thing. So I was knowing all those things. And when such kind of disaster, whether tsunami or earthquake or certain things come, the first thing comes like, that we have to evacuate the people there. Evacuation is the first step. So we have to evacuate the people from there, bring them to a safer place where they should have, temporary shelter, or we can call it as a intermediate. I've listed that thing. We call it as an intermediate shelter with all facilities. We bring them over there. So collecting people from different places and bringing them in one area, that is evacuation process is there. And then we should have our emergency team of doctors, specialized doctors, those who know on the spot how to treat the victims of the disaster. In tsunami, people had lost their legs. Many people have lost their hands, and many people, they were not evacuated in right time. After 5 days, only the helicopter could reach there. Helicopter with our team could reach there, and they were evacuated after 5 days, after 1 week also. So during that 1 week, there was no water, there was nothing for them, no food. So you can understand, they were dehydrated, totally dehydrated. When the snake bite is there, the leg is cut and all, that wound was also, becoming, all kind of gangrene formation was also there. So we should have our trained team of doctors, those who are specialized in this. We cannot take all super specialist doctors, but especially for this kind of team, for this kind of, we should have doctors, enough emergency medicines in stock should be there. And very important is that trauma counselor is very, very important. When we, bring people and keep them in the shelter, intermediate shelters, people are traumatized, because as I told you, that more than 10,000 families we have, adopted, and we have taken care of them. Many people, they were so much traumatized, they could not even talk for more than 3 to 4 months, because they have seen, because in tsunami, they were running with the daughter, but the daughter was small. The daughter was not able to run fast. The mother left the daughter and she ran to a mountain. She could see her own daughter going in the sea, drowning in the sea. She, of course, that time she took a good decision. Instead of 2% dying, at least the child died, but of course her life was saved. But then she was totally, her mental agony, the mental trauma was there, and she was unable to express. So we need a special team of counselors, experts, who can give the trauma counseling, the psychiatrics, and all those things has to be done. And then the community kitchen has to be started immediately. Immediately the community kitchen should be there, so that people should get good nutrition food is required. All those things are required. These are the measurement. I'm just talking to you about the emergency response. Children and women should be in priority. They should be given the priority. Like suppose if you have got one ship, one small boat, or if you have got only one helicopter where only 11% can be seated, there are hundreds of people standing there for evacuation, waiting for jumping into the helicopter. But then the first priority has to be given for the children, for women, and then the elderly, other people has to be there. And as I told you, that involvement of the local community volunteers, they are very effective. They will be helpful. And moreover, during all this process of the thing, even during the rehabilitation process, we have to give the job opportunity, not bringing some other people from experts, engineers from other places, but from the victim family only. we did, we have given them the job opportunity. We given them per day wages and all. So their financial need was also met because everything was disturbed, all things because they were homeless, they were having nothing. So involving the community, involving the volunteers from that particular area is very, very essential. That is very important things, which sometimes the government don't feel the importance of it. They don't feel the importance of involvement of the NGOs and the professionals and all those kind of things. That is really some gaps are there. So we have to understand that we have to involve all such people, in this process, relief, and then permanent rehabilitation till the permanent rehabilitations. This is our job. This is our holistic ministry. We have to get ourselves involved in this holistic ministry, irrespective of any kind of discrimination of religion barrier, the caste barrier, all such things and all. But when they are put up in the intermediate shelters, you keep, because that time people need the prayer. They will not see whether the Christian pastor is coming and praying or whether any other pastor, any other people from other faith coming and praying. So take the advantage. We always say, we always teach to our people, they go with the Bible along with their other equipments, along with all other kind of things. They go with the Bible, they distribute the Bible and they pray. Every evening they call them for the prayer, and slowly, we are getting good result. I can tell you some statistics. 60% of our 10,000 families have accepted the Lord, and now they are the congregation member. They are the citizen of the kingdom of God. Hallelujah. So that way we have to understand, and we have to do this, emergency work, rehabilitation work in this kind of, manner. Even the technology wise also, we should be well equipped. Like, at times, I as an engineer, basically as an engineer, civil engineer and structural engineering, by the grace of God, we could, do a lot of, kind of invention on the spot, because there will be no bridges will be there crossing from one side to other side of the river. There will be no bridge. All such things will be not there. So you should have all kind of innovative plans, innovative kind of things to reach to the particular area in the time of the disaster and do certain kind of relief. In that way, it will be very helpful. I think I am done with this small kind of thing. So my colleague, my brother Damian can take over from here. There are many more points which is required, a scientific approach, and all such kind of things are required. How to do this. The three things, as I mentioned to you, that preparedness, mitigations, and all such kind of things, which is required in a little in a different manner. Mitigation, recovery, preparedness, and all those things and all. But yes, I'm sure that my brother Damian will be able to take up in details all such things. With this, I conclude. I give thanks and all honor to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you very much.
Dr. Madhu, we would like you to continue on, because we have more sessions to continue with, which Damian can pick up on. But seeing that you're occupied most of the days, and we now have you today, we want you to continue. So you can continue up to your time, 6 o'clock.
No, because as yesterday we had a talk with you that initially that 30 minutes will be for me. So immediately I've given my other slot for another, because we have another one Zoom conference now where near about 3,000 people are waiting for my presence over there.
Okay.
So I am afraid that I won't be able to come, because I already have given the time to them.
Okay.
It was pre-scheduled. Earlier, some 3,000 people have gathered. So we have 3 days. But I will be here I will hear our brother Damian on this for 10 minutes, and then I will discontinue from here.
Okay, Dr. Damian.
Brother Damian, you can take over for 10 minutes. I'll be here with you. Then I will proceed.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Madhu. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I love to do
Thank
that.
you,
I
Dr.
love to be
Maru.
with you all for more than 3 hours. But then today, this kind of assignment I've already given.
That's okay. That's
Thank you.
okay.
Yes, Brother Diamond, you can just carry on this. You can just,
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Maru. So, ladies and gentlemen, we had stopped last day at talking about infrastructure and structural works. So from today, we want to push on into landscape and environment, and then some of the other things that are important for us to consider in disaster management preparedness. Excuse me. Management and protection of landscapes and the environment is important because after the event, that's where we're still living. So all organizations, including governments and the community, must consider the effects of developments relative to the landscape and the environment. Oftentimes, we humans, in our rush to put up developments, we sometimes circumvent the rules and we don't plan properly. And we don't engineer properly. And as a result, we have plenty suffering when the consequences are tied in with the risk and the event occurs. All right. We've seen the videos where entire tenement blocks have collapsed. Some of them were brought down deliberately. Some of them were brought down by flooding or by earthquakes or whatever it is. But at the end of the day, or man-made events, there is a lot of stress to remediate, to recover, to go to find victims, and then the survivors have the trauma of dealing with life because life continues. And we often, before we do any development, the cost of these things is not counted. Some governments, they don't even think about a life cycle approach. What is the cost of disposal of the asset that's going to be put up? They only see the cash flow. And then what is the cost of the environment to the environment when something goes wrong? For example, refinery. It's a high-risk operation, oil refinery. And it's dealing with hazardous and flammable and explosive material. Yes, it's used every day in life, but in controlled circumstances. And when loss of control occurs, the consequences are very dire. Climate change predictions need to be considered when planning for mitigation of natural hazards. All right, we have some things happening now: increased sea levels, increased intensity of cyclones and storms, and increased frequencies of volcanic eruptions, torrential rain, volumes increasing. Right, so assessment of especially coastal-based development. This needs to be undertaken to ensure development protects and conserves coastal resources. The coastal resources we're talking about is not just the seaside where we could go and suntan. Coastal resources include mangrove habitats. They include rocky cliffs and sandy beaches. These are all coastal resources and they each have their values to any landmass. Residual risk and risk-based planning, essentially, a clear communication of the residual risk is important when you have multiple local government authorities affected by similar risk. All right, for example, all the coastal communities in face of a storm or a hurricane, they face the similar risk of storm surge from the sea and then from flooding from the torrential rains in the higher areas and the water that comes down the slope. When we consider all risks, we will be able to create multiple benefits. Some of the benefits include improving our risk governance by strengthening transparency and accountability in acceptance, mitigation, and transfer of residual risk across all levels of the disaster management arrangements, whether it's 3 levels like in Queensland or 2 levels like in Trinidad, or multiple levels such as in the US. Specific areas can prioritize resources based on localized assessed risks. And then we mentioned before Monday, scientifically based risk assessments. Disaster management networks will be strengthened and better aligned because we all have gone through the process to identify the multiple benefits and share the learnings. Preparedness arrangements. Coordinated action is essential when preparing for a disaster. So it doesn't make sense that my community prepares itself fully and the neighborhood down the road didn't do any kind of preparation. You know, at the end of the day, if we have knowledge, we need to share it, right? Some people have a problem with sharing knowledge, but I always use the story where a guy was walking home, and on his way to his village, there was a river. And when he got to the river, the bridge that crossed the river, it had fallen, it was destroyed with a flood or some other natural disaster. And as he stood there contemplating, how am I going to get home? In the distance behind him, he heard a car coming. And he recognized the car and he thought that it was his neighbor, who he wasn't on good terms with. And he decided, you know what? I don't think I want to talk to that guy. And he's debating in his mind while the car is approaching the river. Now the bridge is totally out and the car doesn't seem to be aware. He had the opportunity to warn them, and for whatever his reason, he didn't. He was probably thinking in his head, you know, this man doesn't like me. If I flag him down now, he will think I'm asking for a ride. And then I'll feel like if I'm in debt to him, and for all kinds of stupid reasons. So the story ends there. It doesn't say if he stopped the car or if he allowed the car to go straight over the riverbank and into the river. But the point of the story is that you have a responsibility to share information. When you have information, you have the responsibility to share. So all the training that we're going to provide for you here, all the information that we're giving you, you have a responsibility first to use it for yourself, for effective disaster management planning, for all the hazards that you could face, and to share it with other people, because you can't make all the plans yourself. But if you share the knowledge, you'll have other expertise coming to refine your plan, make better plans, right? Better plans will make for better recovery and preparedness. We mentioned before that there are sub-plans within the disaster management environment. So there's the state disaster plan, the country disaster plan, the district disaster plan, the local disaster plan, and then sub-plans, for example, for your street or for your own home. So your first exercise for this weekend is to make your emergency response plan for your own home. And it's amazing how many people don't have an emergency response plan for their own home. If a fire takes place in any part of your house, how do you get out? We assume that we know our own house. But in a panic situation, you'd be surprised if you survive and you were to go back over the scenario. It's amazing what people forget or how people react under stress. When you go to any hurricane preparedness site, they will all tell you to create a plan for home, what you're going to do with your own home. If you have to evacuate, how you're going to evacuate, what are the main routes, what are the best routes, where you're going to evacuate to, what you're going to take with you. and they give you a lot of recommendations. Even amongst my fellow professionals in my field, you know, it's appalling to know that less than 25% actually have their own home disaster plan. And they haven't put aside resources. You know, a lot of homes don't even have a simple first aid kit. So start at the lowest level and you can add and improve. Right? Business continuity plan. This is important for the businesses in your area. All right. And a lot has been done by a lot of companies in terms of business continuity planning, BCP. All right. They're also called business continuity and recovery planning, BCRP, you know, potato. But similarly to when we're doing response plans for our local areas and for the state and for the country, the planning process is the same for a business entity. So functional plans are developed by lead agencies for specific planning requirements. All right, hazard specific plans. A volcano eruption plan cannot be the same as a tornado plan because it's completely different hazards. All right, and your survival depends on different plans of actions in response to the event. Operational plans are response plans that outline a problem or a concern or a vulnerability, and it identifies appropriate action, who, what, when, where, how, to address the situation. Contingency plans are developed to assist with managing a gap in capabilities so that services are maintained, right? For example, what is the contingency plan if we lose power? Do we have a generator? Do we have enough fuel for the generator? Etc., etc. Education. Raising awareness, educating, and engaging with the community to create collaboration, cooperation, and understanding among all stakeholders. Now, in Trinidad, the ODPM, every year before hurricane season, they bombard the general public with hurricane preparedness information. And I hear the comments, like if I'm out and I hear one of the ads running, I hear the comments from people, oh man, this again. They come back to tell me about hurricanes. Ah, God is a Trini. No, we're not gonna have hurricanes. But last year, Tropical Storm Gonzalo made landfall in Trinidad. It didn't cause much damage, but according to the statistics, that tropical storm made landfall in Trinidad. So we were within a hair's breadth. The last time we had a tropical storm come near to us was when Hurricane Tomas upgraded from Category 2 to Category 3, less than 150 miles from our east coast in Trinidad. And then it veered north, killed 2 people in our sister island, Tobago, and continued on to make some havoc in St. Vincent and Grenada and some of the other islands. All right, so Trinidadians are always very, very, very close to a hurricane disaster. And I mean, if the statistics were to really reach them, then they'd know how really lucky we are. Right, some key principles of an effective program. We need to localize the program and activities to suit the area and suit the people. Develop the program theory model for activities that, you know, make a template, a roadmap for evaluation, a permanent record of how ideas flowed during that program development. That permanent record can be shared with other communities that have yet to do this same exercise. All right. When appropriate, consider an integrated approach to planning, program development, and research. So you can delegate some people to do some research about the area, talk to different agencies, then you come back as a group, you discuss the information, and then you take an informed decision. What are we going to do if XYZ happens? All right. Preparedness, prevention, response, and recovery. So the lowest level that you're going to discuss prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. This was a conversation my wife and I had that spread out over a few months. All right, what we're going to do if most of the time I'm outside working and my wife is home with the kids. So we have developed bug out bags in case she needs to leave the premises and take the kids. Last year, we didn't do much drill or practice. All right, but we need to rectify that this year. Also, there's some expiry of some stuff that we have that needs to be replaced. So from April, hurricane season in Trinidad starts in June. So from April, May into June, I'm going to be spending a portion of my monthly income on preparedness supplies, getting ready for the months of June to November. Well, now it's June to December. And I would encourage every family to do the same. It's not an easy process. You can't get carried away with the doomsday prepping, but start with the most likely scenario for where you are living. After you've gone through that, talk to your neighbors about the same thing and encourage them to prepare themselves for the eventuality. Okay? And then talk to your entire neighborhood, everybody else on the street. You know, word will get around that you're the one taking the lead with preparedness. And people may eventually come to you, especially if you push this enough, and they may come to you and ask for your assistance. Hey, I want to make a hurricane response kit. What do I put in it? And you could tell them the bare minimum you need is this list. Because even though it's been bombarded to them by the media, until some people, until they see somebody actually taking it serious and doing something about it, they may not be encouraged to even think about it properly. All right. The easiest response is what we call the ostrich. Stick your head in the sand. But that's a misnomer. When faced with danger, an ostrich is a powerful bird and it will fight back. All right. So we get the idea that an ostrich is willing to stick its head in the sand. But that's a misnomer. Right. Some more on planning there. We'll gloss over that one. Deliberate planning. That's more theoretical. Okay, so you in your plan, right? A basic template. The purpose of the plan. The people who need to be executing the plan. What are their roles and responsibilities? How are we going to coordinate the tasks? Priorities for the area based on the identified risks, trigger points, escalation points to roll out sub-plans, all the resources that would be required for this plan to function properly, our communication, consultation, and any collaboration that would be required, and timelines. Okay, so these points here, those are the basics that must be included in a good plan. Immediate planning rests on close monitoring of an emerging situation with a focus on developing a timely response. So sometimes something is happening. For example, when you have a hurricane coming, the meteorological offices will issue a tropical storm watch. That means we're watching it. We know it's coming and we're watching it. We'll keep you informed. When they give out a watch status, it means you've got 36 to 48 hours before you're in imminent danger. When that happens, then it's panic buying at the local groceries and stuff runs out really quickly. I don't know if anybody ever had that experience, but it's not nice. Then they go on tropical storm warning. This is where they're telling you you have 36 to 24 hours. If the storm intensifies, you go to hurricane watch or hurricane warning. When they reach that warning stage, impact is expected within 24 hours. How much can you do to protect your property in 24 hours? How much can you do to protect your neighborhood in 24 hours? Considering the hardware is not going to stay open, nor the grocery store, they're not going to stay open waiting for you to find cash to come and, you know, buy up supplies and that kind of thing. And in case you were moving at that time, you're not the only one in your neighborhood of 20,000 people who's ready to do that. So the planning starts now, all right, for your own preparedness. But in terms of immediate planning, sometimes you need to be identifying the most likely through credible worst case scenarios by assessing actual or impending event characteristics and projecting these impacts and consequences. All right, we went through a little bit about the planning process. Okay, so the main steps of the planning process. After you've developed the plan, somebody needs to approve the plan. Normally, the person who's going to approve the plan would be an authority. However, if you're an organization making a hurricane plan for your different locations, it would be the team that's been assigned the job of developing the plan who will test it and then decide if they're going to have it approved. After you have an approved plan, in the face of any emergency, that piece of paper isn't worth anything if people do not know there's a plan. So communicating the plan, enacting it, and executing it needs practice. All right? And actually developing the plan and getting it approved is the easy part. Communicating it so that people understand what they're expected to do, how they're expected to act, is only another block. Then you have to practice the plan, because if people haven't practiced it, they will make mistakes when there's impending danger. This is what we call drills. Every fire service tells you to do a fire drill once a year with your home. And I'm sure 90% of us have not, if I took an honest survey. All right. Every disaster management authority tells people to do their own hurricane plan or their own flood plan or earthquake plan or bushfire plan or whatever is the predominant natural disaster in your area. They tell you to do the plan and practice it. If you live near an industrial area, the industry's part of their corporate social responsibility would be to inform you what their plan is for a natural disaster, well, a man-made disaster, for a plant catastrophe, right? And they would, what they do, they call it fence line education. They educate those communities who border their property on what to do if we have problems in the plant. Now, a plan has to be activated, all right? And the activation happens when something triggers the plan. So disaster management arrangements, one model is based on 4 levels: alert, lean forward, stand up, or stand down. It may be different names for those 4 parts, but it's simply the first part is I give you an alert, I give you a warning that something is imminent. And then the lean forward strategy is where we get everybody notified and ready for response. When we stand up the plan, it means we've activated the plan and people are required to perform their tasks as outlined in the plan and as practiced. And then the last part of the plan is not, it's not just suddenly deciding, okay, I've done enough, I want to go home. Standing down means you report that your task was completed and you report whatever new information you have to the coordinator, the disaster coordinator or the coordinating center. All right. Without that, some people, when they start executing their plan, they get overwhelmed and they may abscond from their duty, which leaves a big gap in the plan. And, you know, it would cause problems for anybody else. Okay, so that's the four areas. Like I said, different countries will call it different things, but the first stage is being warned. The second stage is roles being communicated. Hey, you know, you may get a call. Listen, we need you on standby to function in this capacity, and we would need you to deploy to XYZ location. After that, when the event happens, they tell you, I want you to perform in the role of X. And now that we have this thing going on, I need you to report every 2 hours and tell me what's happening. Do so and so and give me a report. And then after you come now and they say, well, okay, we're going to stand down the response. All right, we're going to stand down the plan and I need you to come in for debrief. Now, when you get to the NIMS ICS training explains those 4 stages in much more detail, and you'll actually have to practice it with whoever is the authority that's teaching you the NIMS ICS. They will do some role plays and some practice, and you'll get to see it in action, get to live it, get to feel it, and get a thorough understanding for the stages of activation of a plan. All right, the Disaster Coordination Center. This brings together organizations to ensure effective disaster management before, during, and after an event. The Disaster Coordination Center revolves around 3 key activities. Forward planning. Forward planning includes educating people and encouraging them to make their individual plans, to get familiar with the routes, etc. Resource management. There have been unfortunate stories where people got together, they did their plans, they gathered resources in case something happens, put it in a location, communicate to the neighborhood, only to come back and find that somebody stole everybody else's storehouse. It has happened. It's really unfortunate that there are such selfish people around who, you know, would take a community resource for themselves. But it's the world we live in, right? And then information management. We have to plan who receives the data, who issues the data, because things could get really, really chaotic if everybody tries to shout at the same time and tries to demand resources at the same time. Okay, so at the coordination center, when we activate the center in line with the processes and procedures, we document everything. The NIMS ICS is one of the simplest systems for documenting information within a disaster management plan. All right. Financial arrangements. Now, if your community decides that we're going to take donations from community members to use to lay up a storehouse of response stuff, somebody has to be responsible to account for all the money. All right, because now you're dealing with public funds. Also, when you form a local agency, you can access help from the government at the state and the federal level. When they bring, let's say you request a pallet of bottled drinking water to put away at some location, it may be a school or your community center, in response, in preparation for if we have to respond to a disaster, somebody has to account for that because that's a resource that's paid for. It must be accounted for. There must be receipts. All right, a chain of custody. If we don't have proper financial arrangements, we will find misappropriation of public property. And proper financial arrangements is a deterrent for greed or profiteering. Right. Communication systems for public information and warnings. Now, your local community may not have to develop a whole warning strategy. Now, where I live, the community, there are 188 households thereabout within the boundaries. And on WhatsApp, we have two groups. One is a neighborhood watch, which coordinates problems in infrastructure and crime watch. And then there's another chat that shares information freely amongst the neighbors. Of course, there's going to be some pulling and tugging and some opinionated people, less opinionated people, biased people, and all that kind of thing. However, that using WhatsApp, because I don't think anybody on this call does not have a cell phone. Using WhatsApp or Signal is the simplest means of communicating with your wider community group. And that's considered rather informal. Now, the entire community, we have organized ourselves and we have storm and hurricane warning systems. We have a good relationship with the local authorities and the disaster management unit, with all the government officials, the essential services such as the fire services, police, the utilities, water, power, cable communication. So the neighborhood has come together. We've identified all these things and we've made the contact, we've made the plans, we've communicated the plans. It took more than 2 years to reach to the stage where we are now. Okay, so it's a long task and you're going to get a lot of ignorant people giving opposition and pushback. So don't say I didn't warn you about that. All right, now public information and warnings. Because we have different people in the neighborhood that work for different agencies, as soon as we get some information, we have decided that we will, whoever gets the information has to take the responsibility to make sure it's not fake news before they post it to the group. All right, so that's one of the responsibilities. We had to communicate to everybody. It's an open channel, but make sure you're not posting craziness. Now, at the community level, you don't have to develop much of a local warning system. What we have done for the neighborhood patrol and crime purposes, these simple air horns that look like a can with the, for what else do they call that? The one that small horn that you press and it's really loud because of the compressed air. It's like about 6 or 7 US for one. We've encouraged everybody in the neighborhood to have 1 or 2 of those in their house, so that should anything happen in your house or in your yard, it's easy to alert your neighbor. It's faster to grab that and press it and make more people aware than trying to find your phone. Who do I call? What's their number? You know, it's a very good strategy to alert the neighborhood. So we've done that in our own little neighborhood. And I would encourage you, if you go through that 2-year process, how to organize your neighborhood for response to anything, you may consider doing that.
Yeah, Dr. Damian, it's called as simple as air horn.
Yeah. I see all kinds of fancy names with all kinds of different brands.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah. And it's cheap and effective. Right now, at the national level, there's the emergency warning system. In Trinidad, the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management works with the Meteorological Office and the fire services, as well as the chambers of commerce of the energy areas. In Trinidad, in our West Coast, we have 3 or 4 industrial parks where there's ammonia, methanol, hydrogen, you know, all these kinds of things being produced in one concentrated area. And there are fence line communities that could be affected by a disaster there. We also have the now closed down oil refinery, which is pretty close to where I live, is basically over the hill. And when the refinery was in operation, we had regular communication with the refinery, you know, as part of their fence line warning system. All right, so all of that is tied in with now through technologies, we have multiple warning systems. In Trinidad, we have deployed a tsunami warning system, even though we are an island that's roughly rectangular. In the Caribbean Sea, because it's shallower than the open Atlantic, we put the tsunami warning systems in the Atlantic coast first. And then because of the tectonic activity in the Caribbean Sea, we put it on our north coast second. We've now deployed it on our south coast, which is, if you know anything about the ocean currents, that current comes up round South America and comes to the east of Trinidad about 150 miles and veers north through and around the Caribbean. All right. And finally, we put it just a small version of the tsunami warning system in our Gulf of Paria, which averages a depth of just 85 feet. But after all, it is ocean water, right? It's a sheltered area, but it's still prone not so much to a disastrous, fast-moving tsunami, but to something akin to storm surge if the tsunami effects were to go around the island into that body of water. Then there would be flooding, but there would not be so much threat of a sweeping flood as was highlighted by the major tsunami in Indonesia a few years ago that we're all familiar with. All right, so in Trinidad, we have effected a tsunami warning system. And both the ODPM, some of the oil operators have now joined in, but the ODPM and the seismic department are who monitor that system and who get the warnings first and issue. All right, if your area suffers a disaster event, you have to be prepared for media management, because the media, oftentimes, if you don't manage the media, they will get in your way. And their role, what they do now, we live in the age of sensational news. All right. And we do not have journalists that are conscientious anymore. Everybody is sensational. Everybody wants to get a story, or as we call it in Trinidad, the bacchanal. Right. So everybody is trying to get this sensational story to make the headlines, and that's how they feel important. That's how they get their ratings and that kind of thing. But for my community, we don't care about ratings. Nonetheless, for public roads, we can't stop the media. But if we have to cordon off an area, we have decided amongst ourselves that the media is not a priority. We have our crisis communication network, which includes communicating with the officials designated and the entities designated to respond in a natural disaster. So it's not that we won't talk to the media, they're not a priority to talk to. So when we have a handle on our community response and people are safe, then we can talk to the media. We have designated certain spokespersons who would give factual information to the media. Of course, the media is free to talk to any stander or any bystander and ask them what they see is happening. But for those of us who are on this little neighborhood committee who will be taking charge of certain functions, talking with the media is not our priority. In NIMS ICS, talking with the media is not a priority either. The media will be addressed not by the tactical team and not by the operations center team. But when information goes to, let's say, the Ministry of National Security or the Ministry of Social Services or the Prime Minister's office, that's where the media will get their official response on the situation, not from us who are responding to the disaster and not from the Disaster Coordination Center. All right, evacuation and sheltering arrangements. It's difficult if you have to leave the comfort of your home in a natural disaster or a man-made disaster. And when you have to do that, if you did not plan before, you will be hustling to throw things into a bag, which would reduce the amount of time it takes you to properly and safely respond. So preparation, pre-planning, these are important so that when you are called on to evacuate, everybody has that one bag that they can grab and make a hasty exit. And I highly recommend, I call it a bug out bag. I highly recommend, brothers and sisters, that in each of your homes, you spend the time, find the money, and prepare a bug out bag for every member of your family, especially if you have an elderly or ill member, small children, even pets that some of us cannot do without. All right, so my 3 kids, my wife, myself, we each have bug out bags. And my big son, my wife and I, we also have weapons that we will take. It sounds like doomsday prepping, but in the aftermath of a disaster, those who did not prepare will look at you who had prepared, and when desperation occurs, they will want what you have. And as a father and a husband, my role is also protector of my family. I'm not going around looking for trouble. All right. Fortunately, the neighborhood I live in, there's an area where if you have to evacuate, that's where we will all convene, and then we will pool resources, and we'll see what we're going to do next. All right. So we have that. There's a school on the hill close to the neighborhood. That's where everybody will go. The school is new, it's pretty well constructed. And that's our shelter and evacuation area, especially for those of our neighbors who live lower down the hill. They know that's where they should try to go to. All right. So self-evacuation is the self-initiated movement of people to safer places before in the absence of official advice or warnings. So if you live in a coastal area and you hear that tropical storm XYZ, you have tropical storm watch, then you start packing. Tropical storm warning, you exit, you beat the traffic, you head to somewhere higher up, somewhere safer. Voluntary or recommended evacuation is where the advice has been issued, with people strongly encouraged to consider enacting your own evacuation plan. All right, voluntary evacuees also manage their own withdrawal. Okay, so an evacuation would involve 5 stages. Decision to evacuate. The warning, where disaster event conditions and appropriate actions required are conveyed. Withdrawal. The exposed people are removed from a dangerous or potentially dangerous area to a safer location. Shelter. This is the refuge and basic needs for evacuees, and this has to be provided for in evacuation facilities and the safer location. And then return. The disaster area is assessed and managed with a planned return of evacuees. So you don't return if the roads are blocked. You wait until you have the news that it's safe to return to your home. Right? And this fancy flowchart here, it gives a lot more detail into the process. Okay, so international experience. Now remember we talked about lessons learned last day, right? The international experience indicates that mass evacuation can cause anxiety and stress and lead to panic and loss of life. For this reason, it's recommended that plans be developed based on a credible worst-case scenario, considering the scale through immediate planning. Evacuation, well planned and communicated before the occurrence, will minimize the risk to the community and to the disaster management and response personnel. So imagine if my whole community knew that we were going to be hit by a Hurricane 3, Category 3, and all the people in the low-lying areas that had suffered some kind of flooding in the last 25 years had decided to evacuate and come to the shelter area and move out from the area. When the hurricane hits, the flooding damage is mitigated and there's virtually nobody to be rescued from the flood. All these firemen and soldiers will not have the need to put their lives in unnecessary danger because there's nobody there to rescue. All right? So every year, my community makes that evaluation because there are some unofficial structures that have gone up. And we let the people know, look, I'm not going to tell you to move. That's not my authority to tell you you're a squatter or anything like that. But understand that where you've decided to put up a dwelling is in a disaster zone. And we would like to invite you to educate yourself, prepare yourself, stay in contact with us so that if something happens, and we're not wishing it on you, if it happens, you can be warned and you could save your own life or save your family's life. It's not the easiest conversation to have, especially if the person is illegally occupying. And in the Caribbean, every country in the Caribbean is striving with squatters in some form or fashion. All right, and they often put themselves in serious danger. All right, shelter in place, evacuation center, all these definitions, these are important to know, especially when you're doing your plan. Right, some more about when we actually do the major training for the different roles, and we talk about shelter managers, shelter assistants, and that kind of thing. We get into full details with this, and there's a lot more on shelter management that we can share or train your community, train your country. It's not the easiest thing to do, and being a shelter manager is a difficult job, right? So it takes a lot of preparation to have the designation of shelter manager. It's a specialty. It's not like running a hotel, right? It's like running a crash hotel of a couple thousand angry, scared, frustrated people, unlimited resources. So there's a lot of education and preparation mentally and emotionally that has to go into that. All right, and in shelter management arrangements, we will also talk about prolonging the service to those who cannot return home. Now, Hurricane Katrina has taken the shelter management practice a lot further in the lessons that were learned. Post Hurricane Katrina, there were like 25,000 people living in a stadium for up to 3 months. That is something, it's almost unfathomable, but it's something that happened. Logistics, my company specializes in logistics. We've done logistics movements for offshore drilling programs, for mining. Logistics activities are essentially 3 phases: before an event, during an event, and after an event, right? And in the pre-planning, in the execution, and in the demobilization, there are a lot of different activities that have to be planned for, coordinated by competent, responsible people. And it all has to be recorded, accounted for. The practice of logistics is not for the faint of heart. Just like shelter management is not for any and everybody, likewise, logistics management, it takes continuous, sustained effort. All right. So in your logistics sub-plans, you need to consider emergency supplies, resupply, and offers of and requests for assistance. So during the emergency or before the emergency, there's some supplies that you can lay up. I'll use hurricane. After the hurricane, then there's people who are displaced. There's people whose houses are destroyed or damaged. All right. You're going to need to coordinate bedding supplies, construction, chemical, cleaning, food stocks, food stores, because some people may not be able to go back out to work. People who are daily paid, they are unable to find money to even buy a meal for their family. We have to bear that in mind. General hardware, equipment, refrigeration, transport, waste management, and sanitation, water supplies. There's a lot that has to be considered and planned for. And then after you plan to obtain it, you have to distribute. And then resupply of isolated communities, isolated rural properties, stranded persons. A couple of years ago, before my family and I left for Suriname, there was some serious flooding in central Trinidad, with entire communities flooded out, marooned. It was really, really bad for about 50,000 people in Trinidad. And some companies that I had consulted for, they did yeoman service in mobilizing their trucks to deal with the high waters, to take food and water to people stranded in these areas. right? I have some friends who had some canoes and these little inflatables. They brought them and they paddled all the way down these new waterways, taking, making multiple trips and taking supplies to relieve people. You also have to be careful of offers of assistance and requests for assistance, because some people come to offer assistance thinking that they're going to stick you with a bill afterwards, right? That is another example of profiteering from disaster. And when we get into the logistics module, those of you who will elect to do it, there's a lot more that we will cover, especially for the documentation and accounting. In terms of resupply operations, this is more tactical, where isolated communities they may send their requests and they would ask for resupply of certain things. When you're planning the logistics for resupply, you have to partially anticipate what may be needed, because sometimes I might be thirsty right now and I call for water without checking how much food I have left. And by the time the truck gets there with water, I realize, hey, I want food too. The truck now has to return and then come back when it could have brought all that I required in my isolated community. Okay, so the logistics coordinators will have to, they will learn in the training how to manage that, how to anticipate, how to coordinate. All right, so offers of assistance. If people offer to assist you, let's say in my community, we invited people from the whole community to join us in the planning process. Some people were hardware owners, some people were business owners, and they offered to assist with providing certain things. In some cases, we accepted certain physical goods. In others, we asked for the money so that it will, of course, following proper accounting, so that coming closer to the disaster season or the hurricane season, we could then make purchases. Instead of accepting the donation now and having the logistics nightmare of how to preserve it, where to store it, how to protect it from larceny, you know, we opted to have the money in a fund so that closer to the time we would need it, we make the purchase, reduce the logistics, and reduce the chance of spoilage. Okay, so financial donations, you know, sometimes people see somebody suffering and it pulls on their heartstrings and they suddenly decide to open their pockets and let money flow. It happens. Okay, but everything, when you're a responder in your own community, in terms of financial donations, make sure you record it properly. Volunteer management, this is basically the last thing we're going to look at today. Community members are renowned for becoming the first responders in a disaster event. Now, there's a lot of times people want to jump in and help and they've never been trained. If they've never been trained, they're putting themselves at danger of becoming a victim, especially if it's something like flood response. If they don't have the equipment to do swift water rescue, they've never had the training to do swift water rescue, they go into raging waters to rescue somebody who's clinging on for their life, they end up getting swept away. And when the properly trained authorities come, we end up having to effect 2 rescues, or in the unfortunate case, a rescue and a recovery. What's the difference? I rescue live people. I recover dead bodies. So trained volunteers are what we want. And in Trinidad, the ODPM continues to train volunteers. And this adds to the body of knowledge. And then there are the spontaneous volunteers. Those have to be effectively managed. And in some cases, actively refused because they're putting themselves in danger. What you can do, use them, set them other tasks that will not put them in danger. right? Use them for crowd control, use them as gophers, go for this, go for that, but not for the actual response. Now, if there are organizations that come with their volunteers, let's say a church youth group, you make known to the leader that the volunteers are the responsibility of the organization for which they volunteer. All right? There's a lot of spontaneous volunteers and they have a wish to help. As a coordinator, as a tactical responder, we don't want to deny anybody the opportunity to help or deny them their blessing for coming to help, but they must be managed and coordinated. All right. All right, I think I will stop there. We mentioned already donation of goods and services, and we will continue on the next session and pushing on with other ideas and other theories in the whole practice of disaster management. In the next session, which should be Monday, am I right? Monday?
Yes.
Right.
Monday, correct.
Right, so we'll be going on to another PowerPoint with some more information and continue the sharing and building the body of knowledge. In the meanwhile, I saw Dr. KALLOO had put everything on a Dropbox link. So there's a lot of information that you can go through. For example, in this PowerPoint, there's a lot of reading. You know, I just gave you the main points to emphasize the main things to you. So you go ahead and read. You can reach out to me anytime for clarification on anything you don't understand or for further examples of something else that you need information on. I will be more than happy to share information with you. All right. Any questions on what we went through today?
Hi, Dr. Damian.
Yes, sir.
How are you, sir? Once again, very beneficial presentation. Just a question for me. When you mentioned that the volunteers are the responsibility of whom again? Is it the group that they're coming with or the team that they are now volunteering with? I just needed you to clarify that for me, please. So
okay,
say I'm bringing a group to volunteer. Go ahead.
All right. So for example, when I take my team to respond, let's say to another country, all right, I would go to, when I get down to the tactical level, when I get in country, I report to the armed forces.
Yeah.
And then they would tell me, when they see our credentials and they know what we could do, they know the rescue capabilities we have, they look at our equipment, they tell us where we're going to be deployed to. When we get there, we report to the tactical commander.
Sure.
And I let him know I came here with 10 people.
Yes, sir.
We 11 people are at your disposal, and I'm responsible for the 10.
Sure.
So if the roles are reversed and I'm the tactical commander, somebody comes to me with their team, I let the team leader know, you see those 25 people you brought, they're your responsibility. What I need you to do is X, Y, and Z alone.
Sure.
Right? And that person is responsible for that team. And which is why I'm saying that if the volunteers have never been trained, you may find people doing all kinds of crazy things.
Yes, sir.
You know, and just making life more difficult when they mean well.
Yes, sir.
Which is why community education and training is important before the disaster.
Yes.
Does that answer your question?
Perfectly, sir. Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Officer Lapine, you dressed for the occasion.
I see that.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being present tonight. We want to say thank you again for this investment that you are making into yourselves and your specific community and people. It's a great investment, and I just want everyone to know that Dr. Damian is available for private training, whether it's for communities, country, or any sort of leadership in that fashion. He can design specific programs for disaster management and training and preparedness. That is something we can, you guys can reach out to him after the fact and make whatever private arrangements. I have no issues with that. Thoughts and comments? Any questions so far? Are you guys loving it?
Very informative
Great.
information.
Great class. Great class.
Great. This is Chief Ochi Nakmi Chukmail. This is absolutely a great class as well. I really enjoyed it, and there are a lot of great benefits there, and it's something that everybody, they really need to go through. All leaders definitely need to go through it. So that's
true.
Yes.
Yeah, because preparing your community, I mean, you can't teach what you don't know,
correct.
right? And your first response is arming yourself with the right information. Yes, it's a lot to process, all right? Because I'm giving you the full theory at a degree level. And you can sift out from it. What I'm emphasizing in this class, which is recorded, if you just listen to the recording, you get what you need to start doing your effective planning for your neighborhood, your community, right? Oh, so to the chiefs, I met someone today from Guyana who is directly linked to the Amerindian nation. And he speaks 9 Amerindian languages.
Wow.
These are not written languages, but he speaks them all fluently. And he is of African descent. He's not even Amerindian.
Wow.
You'd be surprised about that. You'd be very surprised about that.
So I have reached out to him to get contact with all the chiefs as well as the Maroon clans in Guyana.
Yes.
Right. So I hope that, reaching out to him, I could get that information. And what he indicated to me is that he may need some help, some form of grant or some kind of expertise to capture these languages on audio.
Well, one thing I want to say is that for everyone's knowledge, we at the Academy of Universal Global Peace, United Nations University for Global Peace, we have initiated a charter of tribal nations. And we've also initiated a Global Peace Initiative, of which we have begun to implement with several of the chiefs present here tonight. Honorable Prime Minister, and this all started with my friend Chief Big Up, Your Excellency.
Yes.
About a little over a year ago, and we have come a long way in bringing this together. We have actually drafts of the Global Peace Initiative, which we are about to implement. Yes. And I believe we will be scheduling a date and a time in Pennsylvania where we will go and physically sign those Global Peace Initiative.
Yes.
For us and for all, it'll be a groundbreaking moment. I'm very excited for that.
Yes.
Very excited.
We are as well. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much, KALLOO. It's a pleasure.
Honors and pleasure.
Respect, love, light. Trust me.
Yes, it's all good. It's all good. So we continue on the same path with the training. We will reconvene on Monday to finish up on the disaster management. There's a lot to be taught, and we're making it open and available to everyone. Once we have completed these courses, we will continue on further training. But once this is completed, we will work on the certificates and the persons that wants to get their credentials. We are also going to work on that. In the meantime, I noticed there are several people that's on that, and they are very welcome. That's quite okay. I just don't have any information on some of the people. I know Chief Bigup have given me all the information for all the chiefs, which I have, and thank you so much.
Yes.
I'm yet to receive from all the different countries, Dr. Levine, and several, I need to speak to Bishop Lamotte and the people from Trinidad. But each country heads, I sent that Excel sheet, and I'm asking you please to complete it, send it to me, so I can begin to prepare the certificates and all of that for the individuals.
Well, Dr. KALLOO, I must say, probably one or two of these members on here is of my nation who thought they would just actually visit for the first time. So you would excuse me with that. I just give them a invitation to listen.
Chief Tonic, they are very welcome. They're very welcome. But if they participate by sitting through the training, we will issue them the certificates for the training. That's quite okay. There's absolutely no problems with that.
Okay, at the end of this, I'll get the names of the one or two brothers and send it for you.
Yes. So please feel free. If people wants to come on and learn, we have no limitations. Everybody's welcome. But
I appreciate that.
Thank you so much.
Brother. Thank you, Chief Tonic. Appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you too. Big up, respect, love, light to everybody.
Love, light. Very much appreciation.
Yes.
Yeah, man.
Yes.
Praise your love. Bless up.
And Dr. KALLOO, I got your email, so
good. Yes.
Thanks very much for that too.
Yeah, I'm sending all the training videos. I'm sending out to as many people as I have, and you can share it with the group. I know in some heads of the countries, you may need to share it with your people. Please feel free to share it with everyone who has been in the training.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Go through it again.
Yeah, will do.
And make sure all the chiefs, if you can, to make sure you get me your lineage connections to your seats, your lineage connections to your heir of your land.
Wow.
And all of the information that we can have to make sure that KIWI can attach this to your information for our tribal charters.
Yeah, see, for the chiefs, what I want to say is this. We will be signing a global peace initiative, and it's not just about signing this piece of paper. Because we are intergovernmental under the UN and the European Union, we are also confirming and validating your presence, who you are. By signing this peace initiative, we're confirming your nation and that we're standing with you.
Wow.
Our affiliates across the globe, over 140 countries, are joining with you in this global peace initiative.
That's right.
So it's very important that we have such information to attach to your file.
Great.
Much appreciated. Much appreciated.
Beautiful.
Dr. KALLOO.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I would just like to backtrack. You were saying something about a spreadsheet for us to receive. How would you send it to us again?
Yeah, officer.
I have that.
The police officer there. He will.
Okay.
Yeah.
He will talk to you about that.
Yeah, Dr. Sims, I have that, and your name is already entered into that spreadsheet.
Thank you very much, my partner.
See, what I have done.
My work partner.
What I have done is I have given to each person, like I sent one for Barbados to Dr. Ferdinand, so that anybody that he had brought on, he would be responsible to give me those information, just like Chief Bigup has given me all for the chiefs. Bishop Lamotte, he had to step out, but he's also responsible for Trinidad. And I know I have Sister Esther, who has come on to me directly, but that's all right. I have her information, but we need everybody's information so we can prepare all the documentation, certificates, etc., and whoever requires credentials. So I don't want to miss anybody or leave anybody out. So if I don't have your information, I will not be able to process it. That's my reasoning.
Dr. KIWI,
Yes, sir.
good night.
Good night, Pastor. How
Yes.
are you?
Quite fine and you?
I'm great. I'm great to hear
Yes.
your voice.
That's right. Next week, God's willing, early, you should be getting mine.
Yeah, we have time, so I'm not rushing you. I just don't want to forget.
Yes.
I appreciate you being here, Pastor John.
I really
Pleasure.
enjoyed tonight. And Dr. Damian, I realized this course was very good for me because my house is about 24 feet high.
Mhm.
And I always wonder, in case of a fire and burglar bars all over, how will I escape or earthquake?
Well,
And
you
I
know,
now realize I must make a plan.
Pastor John, because
Yes.
we love St. Lucia so much, we will come St. Lucia for free just to give you that plan.
I agree. I will make, after the virus, after things get better, I will talk to the authorities, make a proper plan that you all could come in and educate us.
Yes, sir.
I believe you all have enough to offer and we're in need of this type of lecturing. So I'm hoping Dr. Damian will be part of it.
Well,
We
just so
don't
everyone
just
knows,
lectures, we offer hands-on workshops. And
Yes.
we help you with formulating the outlines of your plan. We
Yes.
can organize to run a drill with your people so they get that exposure also. Because you know
Beautiful.
what they say, the best laid plans of mice and men, ... It's great to have it on paper, but it doesn't serve a purpose if a good plan is not communicated.
That's true. That's true. I'm
And
blessed
practice.
tonight. And practice. Yes. Oh, bless the Lord.
thank
It's
you,
like
Pastor
reading your
John.
Bible and practicing it
Pastor
every
John,
day.
good night.
Good
Hi,
night.
Esther.
Queen Esther, how are you?
I'm fine. And you?
Quite fine. We are holding on.
Okay,
God
great.
bless you. Great.
Okay, then I just wanted to say good night.
Yes, that's
Thank
nice.
you. Thank you for being here, Esther. We appreciate it.
Praise the Lord.
You're welcome.
This is a good time. If anybody have any comments, you just want to say hello, all that's fine.
Pleasant good evening to everyone. From Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Blessed love. Can anyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear. Go right ahead.
Yeah, man. It has been a while. Yeah, but we're there and we're just giving thanks for life, and it's really good to be a part of this forum. And we indeed look to see positive outlook and the fulfillment of changes embedded in our people life through this medium. So thanks for having us again to
Thank
be a
you so
part
much.
of this movement.
Give thanks,
Well said, Empress. Well said.
Well said.
I want to say good night to everybody from London. It's now almost 1 a.m. here in London, but I want to thank Damian for a presentation. You could have seen me and my wife here interacting. Damian, you're doing a very good job. I told my wife actually that I could sit and listen for a whole full day's conference. It's full of information, but very good. One point that I would like to bring out on all of your information is I said to my wife that here in London, there is no visible plan. But as a military person, I know that there is a plan based on my past relationship with the Metropolitan Police. There is a plan that's in place. But what happens is, I was saying to my wife, you don't want to have a visible plan and then somebody create a false alarm. because then everybody runs out of their house and they're stranded in a football field, and then hoodlums rob your possessions. I say that to say that when you're in big cities, it's good to coordinate with the authorities and the neighborhood watch, because those are the individuals that are plugged into what is the emergency plan. You will not see it on ground or recognize it as a normal citizen, but please be aware that it does exist. And if you want to play your part, then you must be plugged into those authorities. And then the other thing is, as I said to my wife, if ever I'm inside of a region where, let's say I'm on a travel and there's a crisis, best help that I could offer in not knowing the plans on ground, or all of us, is just making sure that individuals on the outskirts who don't know the plan don't mess up the procedure. So it's better for us to police those persons that are around the peripherals trying to run in to help when they don't know. It would be better for us who know to try to tell them, well, if you want to help, find out what this is and how that is. I kind of help those individuals on the outskirts rather than us ourselves jumping in trying to help when we either equally don't know. So that's just a few thoughts, but I want to thank you for a wonderful presentation, sir. Well done.
Well done.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Praise the Lord.
All right, I think we've come to the end of this session. I want to thank everyone. Greatly appreciate it, all your cooperation, your time, your efforts. I want to say God bless you. We're gonna, before we end it off, I'd like to just, for us to dismiss in a word of prayer. Dr. Levine, would you do the honors?
Yes, thank you. Shall we? Father God, we give you praise, we give you glory, we give you thanks, we give you honor. We are so grateful that we are here tonight, this evening, whatever time zone we are in, to be a part of such a most important training. Father God, we pray that as we receive this training, it will not be unto ourselves, but to the good and to the benefit of humanity. Bless the professors here, Father God. Bless this distinguished organization. And we pray that as we go forth in the earth as chaplains and peace ambassadors, that your will be done in us, for us, and through us. And we give you all the praise, glory, thanks, and honor. Hallelujah. And all God's wonderful people say, Amen.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Bless God.
God.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much.
Have a pleasant good night and a good weekend, and we will
Thank you
reconvene
again
on Monday. And let me just say, the link would be the same. I will resend the link, but it's the same link that we use for the rest of the training.
Beautiful.
All right.
Bless you. Great job.
Bless. Good job. Keep it up.
All right. God bless everyone.
Good night.
Well done.
Good night.
Love.
Take care.
Good night, Dr. Steele.
Peace and love.
Good night, Dr.
Lady
Kiwi.
Janine, God
Chiefs
bless
and
you.
Good night. Good night.
Dr. KALLOO and Damian and everybody. Peace and love.
Night.
Take care.
Peace and love.
Bless you, Dr. KALLOO.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
Dr. Steele, I see you.
I am here. I see you too, Emmanuel. God bless you. I see
Dr.
you.
Nichols, how are you?
Take care, man.
All right. I'll see you later.
Bless.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye, Dr. Steele.
Bye-bye.
Dr. KALLOO,
Bye-bye.
Dr. Nichols. Bye, all. Good night.
All right. All the best.